our global S&OP Community weekly podcast, brought to you by Ahmed Khalid and Ahmed Al-Hamamsi from Middle East. Our global S&OP Community podcast mission is to build a global community from supply chain, marketing, trade marketing, sales and finance all over the world, where everyone's voice could be heard and listened. Every week, we host a new episode with a great thought leader in the S&OP industry. We believe that one word, one story, or one conversation could open up the light in the screen of your consciousness, and you'll never be the same again. We discuss hot and trending topics with our subject matter experts by asking the right questions that uncover their valuable experience in our show. You can visit our website ahmedkhaled.co. Stay tuned every week with our global S&OP Community podcast. Hey. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all those beautiful people who are listening and watching us right now around the globe. Welcome again with another episode with our global S&OP Community podcast. And may I ask you, as usual, if you can write where are you from in the comment so I can send you some greetings for you and your amazing country. Just to let you know, and as usual, I want to tell you about our mission in this podcast. Our mission in this podcast is building a global S&OP community, not only just from supply chain, but also from marketing, trade marketing, sales, and finance, where everyone's voice could be heard and listened. That's why we specified this podcast for you, as your voice matters for us, and we need you mainly in our community and in our podcast. That's why we need to listen your voice. We need your experience, we need your knowledge, and we need your stories. Just a brief about our podcast. We host a global thought leaders in the S&OP field just to uncover their valuable experience and knowledge to our community. What we can guarantee you right now that the knowledge that you will get in our podcast is a knowledge where you will not find in books, a knowledge of years and years of experience in the marketplace from our global thought leaders. You can interact directly with us and our thought leaders in real time, where you can ask whatever question in your mind or whatever questions even in your mind with our global guests, and they will answer you on the spot, whatever questions in your mind. And just to let you know, if you want to listen to our previous podcasts, you can simply open iTunes, search by Global S&OP Community. You will find our podcast there. Just subscribe it, and you will be always notified by every and each new episode that we have. You can listen to our just podcast and absorb as much values as you can. Let me just jump into our lovely audience today. I see our friend Al-Sha'r Abdullah. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much for tuning in, brother. Our friend Nader Edward. Great to see you, Nader. Thank you for tuning in and for your valuable time. Our friend Nicholas from California, USA. Great to see you, Nicholas. Thank you so much. Our lovely friend Mahmoud Bari from KSA Riyadh. Thank you so much for tuning in. Our friend also Ola Abdel Qadir Ahmed. Thank you, Cairo. Thank you for tuning in, Ola. Our lovely brother Omar Bajamal from KSA Riyadh. Thank you for tuning in. We have also Danish. Hello, Ahmed, myself from India, now in Riyadh. Great to see you. So we have to meet. Thank you, Danish. Thank you for tuning in. Our friend Obemi, Lagos, Nigeria. Great to see you, brother. Thank you so much for tuning in. Also, we have Alijo from Spain, Madrid. Thank you so much for tuning in. Juliet from London. Great to see you, Juliet. Thank you. We have LinkedIn user. I'm not sure who is this, but great to see you from USA. I think that it's some technical challenge, but anyway, I'm sending greetings to all the USA. My co-host Ahmed Al Hamamsi. Fortunately, that he will be able to join back very soon. Bless you and your great guest, brother. Thank you, Ahmed, and we are all waiting for you. Our friend Ariel, hello from Brazil. Great to see you guys, and thank you for tuning in. Just coming back to our main topic, and today's episode, I think it will be totally different than not like the previous episodes. It will be not conversational way like previous episodes. We have a material that will be presented with a visual aid and presentation, very interesting presentation, and we have totally different topic. We will talk mainly about the maturity of S&OP and the stages inside the S&OP maturity. You will be able to understand and realize the 5 stages of S&OP and where is your company stands today based on those stages that will be presented by our special guest. And let me tell you, our special guest today is, if I can share my screen, our special guest is Steeven Heine. Steeven, he has 25 years of experience in the business by leading teams in very multinational companies and international corporations with an experience end-to-end in planning and procurement process. His experience mainly is diversified across different industries and different companies. He led forecasting, implementation, inventory optimization, and S&OP, even IPP implementation in one of the world's largest furniture manufacturing company. Stephen, he is an international keynote speaker and subject matter expert in S&OP and IPP, and mainly supply chain improvement methods. I think that I can speak about Steve based on his amazing experience, 25 years of experience in the business and supply chain. That's why I want to just let us welcome Mr. Steve. But before, just as usual, introducing Steve, let's give him some applause. Hello, Steve.
Hello. I'll tell you, you're setting that bar really high. I don't know.
No, you deserve it. I know that it's been humble. And let me tell you something. Thank you so much for being here today in our show, and special thanks for taking the valuable time of your time and preparing this great material that will be presented today. So glad to host you, and I'm sure that our show today will be wonderful and a lot of values to be shared.
Well, I really appreciate the invite, Street. Again, I've seen your previous invitees, and again, people I know, people I've actually met and spoke with at different conferences. So, a great service that you're here in the interactive. This will be the first time where we can actually talk to people live during the podcast. So this is like when I do the live conferences. I love these things. So let's get this started.
It's a pleasure, and I'm so excited today. So again, just to let people know that we will start our presentation today. What I want to tell you about the format and how the flow will begin. We have like 5 or 6 slides. Between each slide, we will stop to take your questions. So Steve will speak about the materials and the values. So draft all of your questions, and once we finish slide by slide, we'll move into your questions and take it on the spot. So are you aligned, guys? If you're aligned, please press yes. So
let's go.
I will try now to share my screen. If you can see my screen. Is it? I think it's now, right?
You're not,
You can see
yep, there we go. Perfect.
it's now. It's obvious now, right?
Yes, it
So
is.
I will hand the mic over to you, Mr. Steve, and take it over.
All right, let's go to the next slide, please.
Okay. Now we are gone.
All right, perfect. So what we're talking about here, pandemic. Obviously, this has hit every industry, every region of the world. There's no one that this has not impacted. So if you hit the next button and we go through
Sure.
we'll kind of roll down through some of these topics. The next one, please. There was a lot of things that happened with the pandemic and how it impacted all of us. And, S&OP, PSYOP, IBPA, whatever you want to call it, the image on that right side is kind of reality that we all faced. We were moving along pretty well, and when you're flying the plane, it was fairly stable. But then the pandemic caused this huge interruption, and we had to fix that plane while flying it. And it was crazy, very stressful, a lot of events happening. I'll tell you what, if you hit a couple more times, we'll walk through some of these big blocks and just so we can kind of get to the questions and the meat of it. If you click, please, there we go. And we'll hit it one more time just to display all of it so the audience can kind of digest this. The enhancements, what we were seeing a lot of times before, people were doing monthly cycles. And in the environment of a pandemic, you can't wait for 1-2 months to see trends and patterns. As they say, two data points is a line. 3 data points, you get to a trend. Well, if you looked at where we were in the pandemic when it really kicked in March, you could not wait till April, May, June before making major decisions for your company because the drop, it fell out so quickly. So what a lot of companies and the individuals that I was working with and things, we were talking about how do you change it and move to a more responsive methodology. And it wasn't just the demand forecasting. It wasn't just the supply, but you had to move them all and you had to move them quick and you had to have methodologies to do that and to be able to monitor that and see it almost in real time. A lot of companies went to what they call, a weekly cadence. Some people will call it a S&OE or sales and operations execution. Other people talking about as a control tower, and we'll go into that a little bit further. But that kind of set the stage for us. And it wasn't just supply chain by itself. It was the entire organization. This is a lot where you hear people talk about either that integrated business planning or end-to-end business planning, because you had to pull in logistics. You had to pull in production, but you also had to pull in your finance team. You had to look at your strategy. So there was a lot of elements on that all went together to manage that. And again, that's where everyone was trying to fix that plane while flying. I'm going to take a breath here and let's kind of go to some of the questions and see what people have to say, or if there's any further details that we should jump into.
Still, we don't have any questions. So, guys, if you have any questions in your mind, please let us know and we will jump into your question on spot. But right now, we can move into the next slide, Mr. Steve.
Sure.
Okay? Sure.
Now,
I will check.
Sure.
Check on the questions. Sure.
Okay, and I'm looking at the questions myself because I can see them. There is a comment from David saying, unfortunately, it's difficult. We have another one that's saying it's difficult to see because the presentation is small. So what we might have to do.
Can we do it like that? If just I ask guys, if you can see the full screen right now, I think it's working, right? So
yeah, I'm sorry. Sure. We are seeing the full screen, but everyone's saying it's still a little too small. So I think what we're going to have to do, maybe we go back to the discussion and talk through it instead of sharing. That might be easier. What's your thoughts on that?
Sure. No worries at all.
Okay. And people were saying, hey, can we share it later, from what I'm seeing in the comments, and we can definitely do that.
Yes, I think that there is a question, Steve, from Nader. He is saying that what is the difference? What's the difference between S&O R and the control tower?
Okay. Yeah. So what will kind of from
S&OE.
yeah, correct. what is referred to as S&OE. So that's that sales and operations execution. That's
Execution.
how well, if people are familiar when the three kind of high level planning phases, you have the frozen period where you say it's locked and loaded. It shouldn't be changed unless there's an executive review or approval process. You have the slush period where it's a little dynamic, and then you have the fluid period. A lot of times the S&OE is how well we're executing within that frozen and slush period when POs are released, when your orders are with your suppliers, and do you have to do air freights? Do you have to do things? And a lot of times I will use that interactively with Control Tower, because think about it's that long range flight. And I'll tell you, if you would slide forward one more click on the PowerPoint presentation, and again, we'll share this with the group if it walks forward. Hopefully it'll step forward. Yep, one more, please.
Okay. Like this.
And
More?
one more. Yep, one more, and we'll get there.
Yeah.
So from a visual, this is, when you're talking about that long range planning, that first big blue box is talking about, the strap plan. That's that 1 to 5 year. Usually we're talking about that long range. That's where you have time to make new plans. You have time for that capacity constraint. When you get into that AOP, the annual operating plan, that's where it's like, hey, we're in the slush. If we had to add another shift, if we had to add an expansion, it's possible, but it's starting to get more dynamic. And then when we get into the S&OE, it's kind of like the airplane. You're now either landing it or taking it off. And it's getting it to that last, what you hear in supply chain, that last mile delivery. And where you got to be careful is, I don't know how many people travel a lot, especially after the pandemic, but I'm still doing a lot of traveling. And how many times have you had the plane has landed, they've pulled you up, and they say, oh, we can't pull you to the gate yet because either there's a plane there or they're not ready yet or whatever reason. And are you as a customer happy that you landed, but you can't get off the plane? So it's just like our customers when we deliver it. Even if it's a third-party logistics company, if you don't get it to there on time and quality and the products what they expect, that's why they'll refer to as Control Tower, or that last mile, the handoff or handshake to the customer. So hopefully that helps answer the question.
Yeah. I think another, just if you want any further question, please hit the just comment. I think that Dr. Steven, if we have another question from Alejo. He has another question. He's speaking, just asking, in which part of S&OP you will implement innovations or new projects?
So again, this is going to be one of those, what you'll find out is, I have a lot of, it depends. There is no silver bullet in this. There's no magic. But when I was working with Honeywell International, think about developing projects that are big chemicals. You have to go through a lot of process improvements. There's safety and security kind of things in it because of the nature of the product. So that in those industries, it can be 2, 3, 5 years to develop a new product. And obviously that's something that's going to be in that strategic because of the amount of capital and investments. Other industries like tech, software, things like that, they can move and they have to move to be competitive. So they're going to be a lot shorter, and they may be in the slush period that because of the dynamics and nature of their industry, it's a lot faster and it's shorter and compressed. So hopefully that helps. Again, unfortunately, there's never one single answer that's going to fit everyone's industry.
Yes, because also, if I can add something to your wonderful insights, Steven. So I think it depends on the industry, and even company to company, and it depends on their process. I see some companies that they don't involve the product introduction or any innovations, new products to the market in their S&OP cycle. They have a different network, and the innovations, when it comes to reflecting the forecast, at this point they put the real, I would say, codes or the real products in their forecast, so it can be cashed up. And some another companies that they take like a network inside their weekly agendas or their meetings inside the S&OP, and they involve each and every product introduction or even the innovation in their cycle. So it depends from a company to company, and depends also. what is the percentage of the portfolio from your innovations and relaunches and the new projects. So it's all about the company and how they look at it from their angel.
There's another good question that just popped in about S&OE. Is it comparing the planning to actuals? I would say that's a small part of it, but it's more about how well are they executing against the plan. So think about when you're talking about the production plan or the purchasing plan, but in the current environment, especially with the pandemic, it's very dynamic. So lead times, how many people have their system lead times and they've updated or overhauled it? Because prior to the pandemic, if you were buying things from overseas, say Asia, China and different things, where you might have had a 30 45-day lead time, maybe 60 or longer depending on the product. But now with container shortages, with the allocation of containers, with the backlog in the ports, are people updating their planning parameters in their ERP systems? Do they have, we work with clients. The one I just had recently, we had to overhaul and do a mass update. And what we looked at is from time of creation to actually time of receipt at the dock. Look
Mhm.
at it, look at the bell curve from over the last 3 months and said, hey, what's that midpoint? What's the deviation that we've seen for the key suppliers? And then put that 95% probability on it. Now, obviously, things will fluctuate. It's going to get longer, but hopefully it'll settle back down that you have those capabilities, not only to review, those and be able to do those mass updates, but it's not just key KPIs exclusively on your suppliers, but it's also internally. How well is your planning parameters done for, and then your supplier, whether you have supplier OTIF, on time and full delivery metrics, just like we do for our customers, and or your logistics providers, or your production group for the perspective of what we call production adherent. How well are they doing too? Because everyone's inventory has got so tight in this current environment.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. So we have another question. Actually, we have two questions from
Sure.
Helbert. He is asking, should we take it that in the old way, monthly process didn't quite span as many functions as are needed with the S&OE?
Again, what I would say is we can't say that that was the case for every company. I always find it interesting where people say, hey, S&OP is this. You could have an S&OP process that is more mature than an IBP process in a different company. The letters aren't that important. It's more what's the maturity level. And when we get to this maturity chart that's coming up, and you'll see it even in the PowerPoint that I talk about, don't worry about the letters, but worry about what's the process and how mature it is. So, whether who's involved with it, if it was just some organizations that are in their early maturity stage, it's only one group, and that might just be supply chain planning. A lot of times you typically see S&OP, PSYOP, or
Mhm.
IBP, that it's one person, and it might be a manager or director in the supply chain area. Other or larger organizations may have it somewhere else, but you can't say, hey, is S&OP just that one group? But what I am saying is when we step back and we look, if you can see the slide later when we send it out to the team, what you'll see is it's a good, mature process. An integrated business planning process will include all the elements. What am I referring to? Those four elements on the screen, which is your strategic
Mhm.
strap or your long-term strategy for the organization, your annual operating plan with your objectives, which usually are in monthly and quarterly buckets, your PSYOP, S&OP, IBP process, and
Mhm.
then your S&OE, that tactical, how well am I executing? Do I need to air freight? Do I need to do special things outside the norm to get that service level that's required? And again, there should be a standard operating procedure when you're going outside the norm. Is it approved? Is it agreed cross-functionally and financially to make that business decision? So hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Steve. We have another question, and I think we will jump into our next slide.
Sure.
So we have our friend Alijo. He's speaking, I think, about the innovations. He spoke mainly about FMCG launching, for example, project launch for next year. I think he specified the same question about the new product introduction or the new innovations or the new project inside the S&OP?
Okay. Yep. So it absolutely needs to be in there. And the way I typically recommend is all these elements, especially S&OP, it's a monthly cycle. It should be a monthly cycle. It should not be weekly. That's what the S&OE is. But is it all inclusive for new products? Absolutely not. If you're having a meeting once a month and that's the only time you're talking about key launches, especially if they're critical ones, there's not enough time to do that in once a month meetings. But it should be that high level overview. Where are we on the process? Is there limitations? Is there concerns about that? And as you go through that typical, review process, the demand review, the supply review, the reconciliation, and then the executive SIOP, should there always be elements of critical new product introductions in that? Yes. Is that enough by itself? Absolutely not. So I think this is, again, that integrated business piece where it's part of the S&OP process, but it can't be that element by itself. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Steve. Uh, Elijah, if you want to have any question or further notifications, please ask more questions if you want. I think we have another question, but before going to this question, we'll jump into the next slide and we'll take more questions. Okay?
Sounds good.
So I will move into the next slide. I think now we're okay.
Yeah, and again, I think this is going to be small for the group, so I'm going to do kind of the verbal overall. What you see in these two quadrants is the early stage versus the advanced stage, and kind of what's the differences between them. So we've talked a little bit about it, but just to frame it up a little farther, and then we'll go to the questions. The early stage is what you typically see. A lot of times, the strategy's not there. What you want to make sure is your corporate strategy. A lot of times when I do my public speaking, I'll talk about Amazon. That's obviously a huge company, and whether it's Alibaba or some of the other large companies across the world, companies like that, they have a strategic objective and what's their focus point. For Amazon, it was growth. And everyone talked about Amazon of how well they're doing and all this great stuff, but they weren't profitable for their first decade plus. And for some people, some companies, that wouldn't be appropriate. That wouldn't be successful. So what you got to make sure is, is your strategy in there and is the group aligned? A lot of other things that you see in the early stages is it's only quantity. You used to hear S&OP, it's the balancing of supply and demand. Well, it's a lot more than that. It's also looking, are you doing the right financial things? Are you doing elements that make sense there for the overall strategy and business and growth incentives or whatever that was? There's also a lot of debate on, are we wasting time? Do you see duplicate meetings that they're talking about the same thing? Are you arguing about what are the true priorities? Are you debating what's the system of record or the KPIs? How many times have people going into meetings and one group has one set of numbers, maybe finances numbers doesn't match supply chains numbers, which don't match sales numbers. And you spend half your meeting debating whose numbers are right. Well, that happens a lot in the earlier stages. If I go to the mature stages, that's where it's more transparent. There's still full visibility of, whose roles are what. You have one system of record. Everyone agrees on, here's how we measure success. And it's kind of like everyone in the boat, in the canoe, rowing to the same direction in the same boat, the same objective or target. Where in the earlier stage, you have the people rowing all different directions. So hopefully that helps. Again, we can go into questions or further details if we'd like.
Yeah, sure. I have a question and I will jump into the other questions. I like what you said, Steve, about the maturity from S&OP and take it to the next level. So just to have this kind of one number between all functions, I'm talking about, as you spoke, that sometimes that you will see that the forecast that flows to the sourcing units or just for ordering from another plants or whatever manufacturing, it's totally different number than what was communicated to the sales target. It will be totally different than the distributor target. It will be totally different than the financial cash-up target or the financial business plan target. How can you shift this mindset I know that you have great experience in that, managing this inside the corporation, consulting this. How can you take this first stage of immaturity, I would say, reactive mode, into the next level in terms of leadership? How can you take it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we get that all the time. And it's being able to bridge things. And here's where I'm going to go with this. It has to fit basically the functionality of everyone, but needs to come back to one system of truth, one set of numbers. Well, a lot of people say, Steve, how's that possible? My salespeople want to see it in the sales dollars. My forecasting people want to see it in unit of measures. My production plan, they might want it in throughput, which could be a common element, which might be pounds or lineal feet, which isn't even in unit of measures. But what you'll find is typically most ERP systems, you can do that conversion. You can convert from lineal feet, pounds to units, then to dollars, and you can even get the profitability for some. Now, obviously, that's not something you flip a switch, but there's ways you can do that walk with a reasonable data set. Some people use Power BI or Tableau or data warehouses, but you'd have what I call different views. Hey, if I'm a
Yeah.
forecasting person, I want to look at units. I can just look at units. It's not as crucial on dollars. I'm all about, am I getting the right
Yeah.
products in the right place at the right time? But whether, all those other stuff, I don't worry about that. Production's going to be doing theirs. So you got to make sure when the units of measures change, it's the same base data. And that's what we kind of, how to go across that and show that help for the next stage.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Steve. I think we have another question from LinkedIn user. I'm not sure who is, but let's take the question.
Sure.
So he's asking how to keep a focus on strategy and tactical angles of S&OP when everyone is fully occupied to fixing the flying plane, which is also on fire. Isn't this the right time to refocus more on strategic and tactical? Never miss a good opportunity.
Yeah, that's a great point. So a lot of times what I have seen, and talking with people at the different conferences and stuff, that strategy and getting everyone aligned of what is the key goals and how do we win together? How am I successful for this day, this week? And, if all of a sudden what you find out, your metrics in your PSYOP or S&OP process today don't align with that, that may be why you're having problem getting leadership engagement, or why they say, hey, I'm not getting a lot of value in this. But if you're tying this with a corporate strategy, and again, for Amazon, that was growth. If you're going in and you're talking about something that's not growth, customer, they're very customer centric, but you're coming into KPIs that may not line well with that, how well are they going to receive that or perceive that? So, are you making sure there's value? Now, at each the demand meeting may be different. It's going to be different KPIs versus the supply or the reconciliation if it's tying into the financials. But you got to make sure it does kind of tie in that. And being able to show that, I think, is going to be key to take this opportunity. Like you say, and a lot of you'll hear sometimes, don't take a bad event and try to make a successful opportunity out of it, because it does open up a lot of opportunities when these things happen.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve. I hope that LinkedIn user, I'm not sure it's not obvious, but hopefully that we answered your questions, and let us know if you want anything more. The second question from David, he's asking, can we discuss S&OP in the retail business?
Yeah, sure. The good thing is when I worked at Knoll, I had Walmart, I had Target, I had Home Depot, I had those kind of big box retailers. And S&OP, it is interesting because those companies also do it. And you'll talk about the integration once we get to the next slides coming up. And this is a great door opener. I break mine out a little different than a lot of other companies do. And you'll see where I have mine, it talks about the internal attributes, where you reflect inside on your company, your systems, your processes, your people, and then the external. And that's where, for whether it's retail and or manufacturing, and S&OP process is a very strong tool. And it's interesting because my first job in supply chain, I was a retail buyer of toys internationally for a 1,000-store, over $1 billion organization, bringing in toys for the toy department and then the distribution to over those 1,000 stores across the country. So I can fully appreciate what you're talking about. And S&OP is a great tool, whether you're retail and or a manufacturer. So hopefully that answers that question.
Thank you, Steve. I think Nader, he's saying something. He's saying, can you please share the slides? It's very helpful. I think we can share this in the comment. We can upload it somewhere and put it in the comment
I'll
inside the
tell you
stream.
what, can you, if you have the, if you go to my personal link, if you go in LinkedIn and search Steve Heine, it should show right on the top this presentation, and it'll show all the slides. So that is someplace where you can see the slides. I just did a post on it, and I think it's on the top of my LinkedIn profile, or if you look at my
Perfect.
activity, I just posted it. So
Perfect. Hopefully that Nader, he is listening to that right now. Okay, so let's move to the next slide.
sounds good.
Yeah. I think this
All
is
right,
the
so
meat.
this is it. Yeah, we'll walk through because there's no question this font is small, and what this is the maturity matrix that I built, and it talks about the 5 stages. And even for myself, my screen's a little bit smaller because I'm seeing the messages and I have notes on the other screen. But if you go to that LinkedIn post that I did on this, you'll be able to see it. It breaks it into the 5 different stages of the maturity. And in those, and I'm going to have to bring mine up because I'm also doing the same thing that everyone else is. The first stage is reactive. So that's, very early in the process. People aren't learning about, things until after the fact. It's not incorporated. They're talking about blame games, no formal meetings or KPIs, minimum reports and data. And there's not a lot of interaction with your outside suppliers. The next one is speculative. So you're guessing at things. You're getting a little information, but it's high level detail. It's not actionable. You talk about when you go into the meetings, everyone's talking about, hey, that's their numbers. What are they doing? They're not helping me, instead of, talking about us as a team. I always have to laugh. People, they see my metrics and they say, Steve, CYA? Yeah, cover your area. It's where you'll have a lot of people that come in with KPIs, and you'll see the metrics and their whole objective. We all know with numbers, you can tell stories with numbers and you can modify them to tell the story you want, and they will cover their area, whether it's production, finance, or sales. They don't want to put that in front of the executives as bad. So they're going to cover their area to their best interest. And that's where sometimes you have different reports from different people, because that transparency is still not fully there. Again, from a technology and report, you're typically looking hindsight. It's backwards. You're not looking forwards on things. Yeah, and if you walk that forward and fill in all those blocks, because again, I don't think the group can see it very well, but I'm continuing walking through this.
Okay.
The external elements, that it's occasional, minimal. You get to the emerging stage. That's where people start learning about it, and it's that hey, this is working. This is beneficial. The strategy starts getting involved. We can do this together. They talk about, how do we align our processes and get to one single record? Our KPI and reports, maybe we can use the different ones with different views that I talked about. And then we also start getting involved with the market environment, the customer, our key customers, suppliers, and what's happening in the market. The next one, stage 4, is collaborative. And that's, again, when you're starting to roll things out. Things are incorporated. We use the words we, our goals. We have a common platform. We're now not just looking backwards, what happened in the past, but we're saying, hey, what if? We're doing scenarios somewhat. And then we're also working with our outside key customers, suppliers, and things are getting automated. The last stage is the integration. And that's when you have the aligned foresight. And that's going across all your internal and external elements. You're talking about, hey, the entire process, it's critical to that. We're talking about the strategy. It's a driving element of it. Everyone's aligned. There's that clear communication and collaboration on that future vision. From a technology, this is where companies will get to the predictive, the machine learning, those kind of advanced things when you're in that elite of the elite. And then from the external things, you're working with your key suppliers and market intelligence. Some companies will do the web scraping and things like that. So, that's a lot of information. I just dumped a lot. Hopefully some people can see the online with the bigger print. And again, if you want to get this, you can definitely hit my site. I think we'll do a push and share this to the whole group. So I do apologize that the print's a little small, but at least it'll give a high level framing. And now we can go to some questions on it.
It's wonderful, Steve. We have a question. Just if you allow me, I will jump into this question from Salwa. She's asking, you read in the previous slide that S&OP and S&OE are generally managed through two separate teams. Is that what kind of industries is it relevant to have separate teams?
Here's the reason why I'm saying that. Is it 100% no one's similar? No. But is it the exact same team? No. Here's the why. Let me explain the why. Remember that the S&OP is going to be the higher level. You don't want to have a huge amount of people. I find some organizations want to have this entire huge room that can break down the efficiency and the productivity of the meeting when you have too large of a group. When you start talking about S&OE, especially depending on the size, if you have a large international corporation and you got different countries, different regions, this is about how well each location is executing their plan, whether they got to do, air freight, whether they got to do overtime, whether they got to do optimization of, whatever, but how well are they doing that last mile and what are the business decisions to do that? And you don't want to have, your executive team in that. There should be standard operating procedures that says, hey, at this level, you can make these answers independently underneath the standing operating procedure. If you go above here, you might need to be able to get a higher level or finance to go in and say, man, I'm going to be air freighting a whole, X amount of pallets from overseas. Does that meet the margin cost justification? But why I'm saying is it's different, is it's a different kind of people and it's a little bit different function, but they got to be integrated, that it's not standalone independent, that data needs to go back and forth and feed each other and be linked if it helps. So hopefully that answers that question.
Thank you, Steve. We have another question from our friend Alijo. He's asking, when you talk about IPP, is about SAP, HANA tool, or other integrated business plan?
Good. That's a good question. So here, I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna twist it. Neither. See all the above. What you're referring when you're talking about HANA and IBP, that's a module. Back in the day when I was at Honeywell, the older model of the IBP was the APP, Advanced Planning Optimization. I am not talking about software here, so I'm not talking about SAP's IBP. I'm not talking. A number of companies are implementing new models of IBP. When I'm using the IBP acronym, it's Integrated Business Planning, and it's a business process or philosophy that says, hey, how do we make sure that we have full alignment and planning across the organization, being all the functional teams, so finance, supply chain, procurement, logistics, HR, engineering, new product introduction, marketing, sales. It's integrated business planning as a business philosophy, not a tool. So hopefully that helps answer that question.
Yeah, thank you. We have our friend Atif. He's saying great information. Thanks for all of your effort. Our friend also, Luis Alberto, is saying thanks for the information. Best regards from Guatemala. Thank you. Arijo, he's confirming that everything is clear.
Perfect. I'm glad that helps.
Thanks. So I think now we reached to the end of mostly the presentation, right?
Well, let me do there is one more page, but
Sure.
let's hold on this one for one moment. So in
Sure.
the post that I did and on this page, we talked, there's a Mentimeter survey. The goal is not, you don't have to do this right now. It's open for 2 weeks. So please, again, let's stay focused and keep this dialogue going. It's a great conversation. And I don't want to have people distracted and all of a sudden we lose all the questions. We want to keep these questions coming. They're great. But there is a Mentimeter survey out there. It's 100% anonymous. I cannot see it. Mentimeter cannot see. So don't feel bad. But what we want everyone is to be truthful and fair. And what it will do, that survey that we just talked about of the attributes, the four key what I call the cornerstones being the strategy, the people, the process, and the technology, both internally and externally. I would like you to review your own organization. What does allow you to do? It'll allow you to see how well you are coming up versus other companies. And it will actually, if you put your email at the end, you'll be able to see how well your performance is versus everyone else. It'll give you this bell curve. It's a real nice bell curve. And then you say, well, Steve, if I do it right now, and should I wait to the end? Definitely not. It will send you an email and you can look at it, hey, next week. You can come back in 2 weeks when it's totally done and it'll allow you to keep going back and it'll show you everyone that's answered this question. So it'll be a good thing, and that'll also be helpful for people who couldn't attend today, and they'll watch the video later in the week or next weekend, and they can still do it, and you can see the results on that. So that's what this is all about. Is there any questions about the survey or how to access it or how it works?
Yeah, I think, guys, if you have any questions, just let us know. Just jump into the. I think that we have another question from Raymond. If he
Sure.
allows, just will jump. He's saying, just apologize for joining late. No problem at all, brother. So he's asking, does IPP replace your business continuity plan, or does IPP complement it? Thanks.
Oh, that's a good question. I think that, and again, I apologize, and with you being late, Raymond. I'm going to do my typical answer, as I mentioned. It depends. It depends on the structure of the organization and the uniquenesses. A lot of times what I would recommend doing, and when we go in and we work with clients, or I've worked with my own, when I have my own business units, what I would do is I'd say, guys, give me all your meetings that impact these things. These are the key elements that we're going to cover in our demand meeting, our supply meeting, our reconciliation meeting, and also the executive meeting. If there are meetings where you're covering the exact same topics, we just got to understand where is this going to be. No one in today's world, no one needs extra meetings to rehash the exact same topics multiple times. It's just not efficient for the company. So it's going to be where's the best place to put it. You do want it to feed of one of the two places that it's integrated, and again, you have that integrated business planning. But I wouldn't say it does 100% cut it out, it's not needed. Because again, these meetings are typically, depending on the company, it could be as short as a 1 hour meeting. I've seen them sometimes go a half day to a full day meeting, depending on the organization. So, it's all dependent on the company. And like I say, there's no one size fits all for every company. So hopefully that answers your question, Raymond.
Thank you, Steve. So we'll come into the last question. So uh, if anyone wants to just reach out to you, whether for just helping them in their career or just helping a company, what will be the best channel to connect with you, and where?
Sure. I would say LinkedIn is it's believe me when I say you can find me easy on LinkedIn with public speaking I do. If you put in Steven Heine, it's spelled Hainey. Obviously, it's in the deck. It'll be on all the information. But if you even if you Google it, just because of the uniqueness of my name and the public speaking, I'll always come up first, and LinkedIn is one of the first one that comes in. So I'm very easy to find. Just hit me on LinkedIn. I love networking. I love doing these speaking. So just let me know if there's anything I can do to help, or if there's questions I can do. It's a great community. I'd love it.
Thank you. On behalf of all audience, I'll give you this. Again, I would like to thank you so much for the amazing and stunning presentation. A lot of values, and a lot of things that open our eyes in how we should run the business, and especially in the maturity stages. I'd like to thank you again for your valuable time, insights, experience, and stories for sure.
One more thing for you.
Sure,
Can you? I'm going to hit the last topic. There's no need to bring up the deck, but there is one
sure.
more in the deck. But I'm going to cover it right here. The one question I always get asked also is, Steve, what is, how do I get to stage 5? I'm here. I want to get to stage 5. How quickly can you get us there, or how quickly do you think it should be before I get there? And my answer is going to be the same. It depends. But the one thing I have to make sure everyone understands, stage 5 is not the appropriate target or goals for all organizations. I will sometimes get people say, but that's the end all. Shouldn't we always be shooting for that? There is always a Kaizen event. You always want to improve. It should never stop. Yes. But do you want to be at stage 5? For your industry and the strategy for your company, stage 5 might not be a fit. When you look at technology, it talks about machine learning, web crawling, AI. You need data
Yeah,
scientists for that. If you're a mid-sized company, and depending on the industry you're in, stage 5 may not be
exactly.
appropriate for your company. Now, with the people and alignment of the strategy, I would say, hey, for strategy, you do want to try to get to 4 and 5. Yeah,
Yeah,
again, because that's that communication, the transparency, the openness. So stage 5, you typically want to be process. You want to be on the higher end, but once you get to the technology and then also the external parts, there's sometimes where that ROI or the return on
yeah.
investment just doesn't
Investment.
justify it. And a good example a lot of us use that have been in the field a long time, it's like inventory and service level, where people say, Steve, what do I have to do to get 100% service level? And I'm going to say, you don't want 100% service level. You want to get better. You want to
Infinite
improve.
stocks.
100% fine, again, depending on the deviation of your business,
Yeah,
100%, usually the cost doesn't justify it because you have those tails. And once you get out to, hey, I'm out to 98, 99, 99.5, that tail, the cost of that is just so
inventory.
exorbitant. It's, for most companies, it won't make sense. So just be careful of when people try to say, we want to get to stage 5 and we want to do it now. That they understand that is not always in the best
Yeah,
alignment of the corporate strategy. So,
yeah.
um,
It makes sense because again, it's all about the scalability of the business,
right,
and it's very easy just most using this. What will be the cost versus the benefits? And as you said, it's all about the ROI. So if I you will be using just artificial intelligence, machine learning, and invest all of this, what will be the incremental, just tangible things that I will have into my business? If it doesn't justify, for sure, it doesn't make sense. It's all about how you can reach to the optimal level in terms of profitability or business strategy versus the cost that you will bear it.
right.
This is the game. Yeah.
Yep,
Again,
totally.
I would like to thank you, and I would like to thank all the audience that they interact and engage today. I re-stress, please, guys, if you need anything from Steve, contact him directly to LinkedIn on LinkedIn, and I guarantee you that he will be able to answer all of your questions, and he will help you whatever you want. Thank you again, Steve, and thanks for everyone who joined us today. And hopefully that we'll have another episode very soon.
I hope so. And again, thank you, and thank for the audience and all the great questions. It was a wonderful event, and I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, guys. Have
Cheers.
a great day.
Bye.